Good morning or good afternoon to everybody, depending on where you may be joining from Asia Pacific. My name is Chris Levanes. I'm the head of marketing for Lumen Technologies here in Asia Pacific. Before I begin, let me first of all introduce my colleague, Steve Nolan. He's the Global Senior Product Manager for our private cloud suite of products. He'll be monitoring the chat. So if you've got any questions in relation to this presentation, our products, our VMware partnership, feel free to just pop them into the chat and Steve will be answering those as we go along. So let me kind of set the scene or dive straight in by starting with a common perspective to frame today's discussion. And I think most of you would agree with the fact that we're already in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. And I'm sure as you would also agree, companies in today's landscape are being disrupted. There's rapidly evolving expectations from consumers and business customers alike. And as a result, business models are equally having to rapidly evolve and change. And what does underpin this fourth or latest industrial revolution is really underpinning and driving the innovation is data, the ability for organizations to acquire, to analyze, and then as quickly as possible to then act upon that data is really what's going to lead towards a successful digital organization. And so that really brings us to then Lumen's value proposition in this landscape. And as I mentioned, your customers are looking for data-driven insights. That implies fast, connected applications. Increasingly, interactions with customers, with consumers are going to be digital in nature. There's going to be an emphasis on speed and agility and analytics, faster decision-making and faster delivery. And so that's where Lumen really comes in. For those of you that don't know Lumen, we've been known in this part of the world by a couple of names previously, Savvis, CenturyLink, Level 3. But last year we rebranded ourselves to Lumen Technologies, and it's really in line with our strategic vision of being able to address the dynamic data and application needs of the fourth industrial revolution. We've redefined ourselves as a technology company that integrates networking, compute storage, security, and collaboration to really help service those next generation applications. And those success, as I mentioned, is going to be based upon performance and speed. And increasingly, as you start looking at edge scenarios, edge use cases, then that's that low latency, data-intensive applications, which our products are really designed towards. And we're going to focus today on Lumen Edge Private Cloud, which is based upon VMware's Cloud Foundation and software-defined data center technologies, coupled with VMware Cloud Director. So I wanted to begin with providing a bit of context of where we're at and more importantly, where we're heading. So when you think about traditional line of business applications and you think about these axes here of round trip latencies and bandwidth requirements, things like a hosted SAP application, whether it's own data center in a hosted environment, in a public cloud environment, anywhere between 50 to 150 milliseconds latency sensitivity. Anything beyond that obviously then starts to impact users' performance and the application's performance. And anywhere between about a 1 megabit to up to maybe 10 megabits per second of bandwidth. But when you look to 4IR type workloads, particularly those that are looking to really define and leverage edge technologies, then bandwidth intensity increases immensely, as well as that round trip latency sensitivity, as well as then other things around, well, particularly if you've got global applications, then what about the geographic and location autonomy requirements? And so just using a couple of these to kind of illustrate the point, you think about things like augmented reality, virtual reality, obviously, as you can see from the slides, very bandwidth intensive. When you think about autonomous vehicles, highly latency sensitive, less than sub-milliseconds types of requirements, because as a car's driving down the road, it does not have the luxury of that round trip latency of more than a second. Anything above sub-milliseconds, runs the risk of human critical issues there, accidents on the roads, those types of things. So increasingly these applications are really being defined by their ability to do ultra-fast interactions with data at the edge. So capture and analyze that data and make informed decisions very, very quickly. What's also evident from this, I think, is it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all policy. Trying to single source compute, storage, security across a consistent kind of environment is problematic, because each of these workloads are going to be different, and even aspects of their workloads. You know, as I mentioned, some of the capture and analytics may need to happen at the edge, and other aspects of real-time analysis, or sorry, not real-time analysis, but less real-time analysis may be happening in other parts of that hybrid IT environment. So with that background, I wanted to share some research that we had commissioned from 451, a leading analyst firm. It was in the year 2000, reflecting on what's coming up this year and in the future. And the first, the key takeaway here I want to leave you with is, as you can see, there's already investments and strategies underway around edge technologies. The majority of organizations that were surveyed are already starting to begin to build or strategize edge solutions for their next phase of innovation and application, servicing their business and servicing their customers. Requirements around those applications will be things like enhanced application performance, particularly through low latency use case requirements, as well as some other things that I'm going to talk about in the coming slides. If we double click down then into this research, you'll see here what stands out is, as I indicated, there is a majority of investments is now starting to look at that metro edge and that premise edge and deep edge. Obviously on the deep edge is where you've got the devices themselves, but part of that capturing, analyzing, actioning business logic is then really being put in either metro data centers or premise data centers, or even looking to stand up some micro environments which are self-contained, or really able to handle some of what's the business requirements that are needed at those locations. Edge computing, I think it's really important to reinforce, though, really serves as a powerful complement to cloud computing. As you can see here, public cloud is not going away. It's not going away for other non-4IR use cases. There could be aspects of 4IR use cases which absolutely benefit from the value that public cloud brings, particularly in terms of that scalability, the features of an infrastructure and a PaaS platform and software platform. But the applications that are being looked at from an edge location perspective is really then designed around a best execution approach. They're really, as I mentioned, looking at unique operational venue requirements and able to meet the demands of those next generation applications, particularly around that low latency and even increased requirements that may exist around security and data sovereignty. Public cloud locations are obviously centralized repositories of business logic and compute resources, storage, memory, etc. And that then, when you start thinking about global IoT applications, global logistic applications, global medical applications, particularly those that require those edge low latencies capabilities, then things like regulatory requirements and the local landscape really and security really come into effect. So let me share with you then what we've heard as part of this survey. And I think it's good to understand, as you all know, technology is really about balancing up that opportunity, choice, and complexity, and making informed decisions around which workloads are best suited for which execution venue. Some of the things to think about here is we can kind of group these into three different buckets. Based upon the surveys to date, and this is based upon the way that customers are looking at their 4IR workloads, their edge use cases, based upon the technologies today, their strategies today. But as I indicated, these will evolve over time. There's a lot of use cases which are just being dreamed of as we speak. But what was top of mind, I felt was quite striking, is the cost of supporting infrastructure and the availability of supporting infrastructure really stood out as the top two top of mind concerns. And what that then means is, obviously, we've been conditioned over many years of really getting the values of things like CapEx rather than OpEx, right-sizing workloads, being able to not overinvest, so you've got a good alignment between resource allocation and workload requirements. And so that obviously is going to continue to be important for businesses moving forward when they start thinking about edge locations. They don't want to be going back to the old world of kind of IT investment intensive. They want to keep that approach of really aligning business requirements with their IT requirements. Secondly is then about the data sovereignty. And so, as I mentioned, increasingly, it's an increasing regulatory landscape. Physical security, logistical security continues to be very important. Two things driving that, of course, is obviously the increasing threat landscape. And number two, the nature of some of these workloads means they're identifying individuals. There's some PII data or PII types of data which can then nominate or identify individuals. So having a high degree of security around that solution is then very, very important. And so then thirdly, which I thought, a bit of a stark difference between the top four, which, there's not much of a difference between 40% and 45%, but then less of a concern at this point in time is really around the latency performance. On the slide that I mentioned before, simply by moving their infrastructure, their business logic platforms closer to the edge, closer to where those digital interactions are occurring, then by means automatically, what that means is you're going to get the latency and performance consideration benefits, but obviously we envision that over time that's going to continue to grow and evolve. And so, basically, as I mentioned before, really edge private cloud really complements that private cloud, and it's designed to identify workloads which are well suited for that low latency, high performance digital interactions that ultimately then, once you slot into a hybrid IT solution, is really able to then add value to the business, particularly as they start looking to these future use cases and future applications that are being built. So let me spend a little bit of time just going through a couple of use cases which describes this. I think a good one I want to talk through here is around edge computing as it relates to financial services. And when you think about a global FSI organization, irrespective of the application itself, if it's a global trading platform or even starting to leverage some blockchain technologies, what manifests itself as these are interactive, intensive, highly regulated, of course, but the interactive intensiveness and the low latency sensitivity means they've got to be very close to those liquidity venues where the transactions are occurring. And it's not just then in terms of doing the transactions, but it's that real-time or near real-time analytics. So they can be either detecting threats or fraud, as well as identifying business opportunities and market opportunities for their business or their customers. So they need to establish data repositories where they're doing some of that business logic. At the same time, that's still, given it could be a global application, that still needs to then obviously interact and interface then with where all the trading systems may happen to be. And then finally, of course, when you think about the future landscape, it's very much looking around a forward-looking platform which really aligns to a hybrid IT standpoint. So this is just a diagram of how Lumen is able to help customers, and have helped customers with these types of situations. So it's a combination, as I mentioned, of Lumen Private Cloud based upon VMware Cloud Foundation, vCloud Director. At the same time, making sure that we've got our global network coming into play, as well as our complementary suite of managed services. I do have another use case here, but I think I'm probably running short of time. So what I might do is just quickly skip through this I think people can read this for themselves. The point I wanted to land here is this use case, unlike the previous one, where there was high degree of low latency sensitivities for that global trading platform. This is more of a customer which is using the same private edge cloud platform technologies just to really exit out of their existing data center and move away from that CapEx intensive old way of doing things. And for their requirements, it was about an integration of looking to leverage a hosted private cloud, looking to leverage public cloud for some of their customer applications and business workloads, and make sure that those are integrated together, both in terms of networking, storage, compute, and a unified managed services platform. And that's really how Lumen was able to help this organization, which is based within the US. So I know I'm short of time, so I just wanted to kind of leave you with a couple of takeaways then from this session. Number one is the landscape has significantly changed. 4IR technologies, 4IR innovations are really driving different set of requirements for the modern day applications. Customers are looking for, number one, a platform which integrates into their existing environments. That could involve a combination of existing legacy data centers, on-premise investments. That's absolutely going to encompass public environments, whether that's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. But increasingly, as the data is shown, as I talked through, it's around also looking at platform investments, IT investments, which are closer to that metro edge, that premise edge, and where the deep edge and those end devices are, and where those digital interactions are occurring. So hand in hand with that, they're really looking for consistent governance. They're looking for an integrated solution across network, compute, storage, and security. And they're looking to make sure that they're optimizing their ROI. They're not over-investing in technology, and they're really aligning those business requirements to their technical resources. And that's where Lumen comes into play. We're one of the largest telecommunication providers on the planet. We've got over 450,000 route miles of fiber that is complemented with the deepest peered IP network in the world. So we're deeper connected to other telcos, which means less hops, and really able to help customers with global requirements interconnect all of their applications regardless of where they are. Added to that, we're both through our own fiber interconnectivity and lit buildings. We're connected to more than 2,000 public and private cloud data centers. And in addition to be able to stand up our private cloud edge environments in third-party data centers and in metro locations, we're in the process of also investing in edge compute nodes in strategic locations across the globe to really bring us within less than 5 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds or less latency to some of those key metro areas that our customers are looking for. In addition to that, our VMware private cloud, Lumen private cloud based upon vCloud Foundation is a hyper-converged infrastructure, as I'm sure you all know. But this concept of a hyper-converged platform doesn't just exist in the box that we're providing to customers, either through a build order or pre-built configurations. We also take that concept of a converged platform and extend that into all of these other areas. So as I mentioned about our network connectivity, but at the same time, we've got security services. Some of these, like we monitor 195 billion net flow sessions. We monitor more than 40,000 C2s on a daily basis. We monitor more than 1 billion DNS records on a daily basis. And we monitor and analyze those to identify both existing and emerging threats, up to, I think, about almost 2.5 million unique threats every day. And then finally, we're able to extend all of those capabilities through our trusted partnerships. We've been a long-standing partner of VMware, started in 2005. And I think when VMware stood up their vCloud verified partnership, we were one of the first 5 partners to actually get that certification. And as you can see here, not just VMware, all the other leading technology cloud providers we work closely with. So let me just conclude then with the call to action. So I wanted to invite you obviously to attend our booth. Come and join us at our booth and chat to our speakers. You'll have Steve and other subject matter experts there. We've got a number of sessions occurring throughout VMworld over the next couple of days. And finally, you should jump onto our website to learn more about our computing solutions based upon VMware technologies, as well as see if you've got any questions on Edge. We offer free consultation services, and we can also, through the other solutions, as well as your inquiries, really get into some of the technical aspects around our solution, how we're able to support customers with their varying use case requirements. So with that, let me hand back to Gavin.
All right, thank you, Chris. As a reminder, if there's any questions, please post them in the Q&A. And if you can take a moment at the conclusion of the session to complete the survey, we would greatly appreciate it. Any questions from anybody? All right, Chris, I think we can wrap it up if you'd like, unless you want to hang out for another minute.
That sounds good, Gavin. We can wrap up now. Like I said, anybody that does have any outstanding questions, feel free to join us at our Lumen booth. We'd welcome you there and happy to answer any questions.
All right.
With that, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.